What's up everyone? It's Vonni from Luv Lola. Welcome to my channel. Okay, so I know I'm always so excited when I have a tutorial to do for y'all, but today I am super excited, and it's because today's tutorial, I can't even talk, I'm so excited. Today's tutorial is on my new pattern, the Vonni. This is my first real pattern release. So I'm just so excited. In case you've been wondering where I've been MIA. I haven't been doing any tutorials and I miss it so much. Now that I'm getting this pattern out, I'm gonna be right back to it. I have so many patterns that I've seen go by that I'm like, oh, I wish I could make that. But I just haven't had time between, you know, my selling bag making supplies and working on my pattern. But anyway, none of that matters. All that matters is that it's done now, and I'm just so excited about it. Originally, the pattern was gonna have 2 sizes, but I let my mom convince me to add a 3rd size, so that has made the process just a little bit longer. Have to say thank you so much to my testers. They really came through during this period. Bless you. So yeah, thank you to my testers. I love you guys so much. But yeah, it's here now. And I do want to say really quick, I did make a modification on the flap during the testing process. So if you see some of my testers post the bag and you're thinking the flap looks a little bit different, that's because it is a little bit different. I decided to slim it up a little bit. Vonni went on a diet. She slimmed down, so it's gonna be a little bit slimmer, but that's about it. It was for the better of the pattern. So some of you may be like, I like the bigger flap. That's fine, that's cool, but it ain't big no more, okay? You're welcome to modify it on your own. I ain't mad at you. But anyway, so yeah, let me show you some of the Vonnies that I've made so you can see the different sizes. So there's 3 sizes, like I said. The smallest one is going to be the Vonni Super Mini. The Vonni Super Mini's finished measurements are 7 3/4 inch long, 4 inches wide, and 5.5 inches high. That's 19.7 centimeters by 10.2 centimeters by 14 centimeters. And while these Super Minis are super cute for our mini me's, I also sport the mini size myself. Like I said, I love a small bag. So I gave this one to my daughter. She's already got her stuff in it. She wore it to church on Sunday. Oh, she got some markers in there. So even though it's tiny, the way that it's made, you can fit some stuff in there. Like she's got markers, she's got a doll. She did have a notebook in here, but it's gone now. She's moved on. But yeah, as you can see, the inside does have a zipper pocket that's attached to the flap. And on the back, we have this cute little pocket right here. And when I wear this, I really don't use this pocket for much. It's more like a decorative piece, especially for the small size. But sometimes if I'm in a rush, I'll put my credit card in there because it'll fit. That way I can have it ready, you know, when if I'm shopping or, you know, buying drinks. It can be right there for me to grab. And then also there's a little hidden pocket on the back that goes all the way down to the bottom. So it's a pretty nice size pocket. But the bag does come with a lock on the front. I subbed the lock out because I just thought that this bow was super cute and it was for my baby, so I was like, I'm gonna put that bow on there. So I just put a magnetic snap on the bottom instead. So that's the Vonni Super Mini. All right, the next size up is the compact, and I think that this is probably gonna be the one that most people use. The Vonni Compact's finished size is 9 inches long by 4.5 inches wide by 6 inches high, and that's 17.8 centimeters by 10.2 centimeters by 15.2 centimeters. It still has that pocket on the back, the hidden pocket. There's the bottom. We've got that same zippered pocket. And like I said, it's pretty spacious because of the way that the bag is made. Okay, and here's they are side by side, just for an idea, for a comparison in size. Okay. Okay, and here is the large. All right, and this is the Vonni in the largest size, and its finished measurements are 10.5 inches long by 5 inches wide by 8 inches high, and that's 26.7 centimeter by 12.7 centimeters by 20.3 centimeters. Okay, so here is the large on. It's still not super big, bigger than what I would wear, but it's a good size. This is the size that my mom convinced me to add on right before I was about to really get the pattern going, because it's the size that she wanted. So I'm not mad at it. There we go. Okay, so these are the 3 sizes, and I just love it so much. Ah. I do believe that this bag is beginner friendly. The way that I constructed it is very different from the way you would normally construct a bag, and so it can seem a little confusing, but if you just take your time and follow the instructions to a T, like I know when I make bags sometimes, I'll glance over the instructions, but then I'll be like, I'm gonna just do this because I know this, we make them all the same. I know you do that. Well, most people do that. I do that. Don't do that for this pattern, because it's so different. If you try to glance and just go do something, you're gonna wind up probably doing it not the way that I did it, because like I said, again, it's constructed very different from a normal bag, and you're gonna mess it up. So just take your time, read the instructions. If you don't want to read the instructions, just watch the video. I got you. But yeah, so this is the Vonni, and I'm super excited to share this pattern with you. If you purchased it, thank you so much for supporting me and just my ideas, you know, because I have more that I want to bring to life, and this is just the beginning. Okay? All right. Okay, y'all ready to get started? I know you are. I talked a lot for this, but it's my pattern, so I feel like I can give it a little extra time. Okay, I'll go now. All right, let's get started. Oh, Vegas. Next month, I'm gonna be teaching this bag at Sewcation in Vegas, June the 20th through the 23rd. But it used to be Sewcations, and I think now it's Sew Bestie. But anyway, she's having an expo in Vegas. So it's Sewcation Sin City. But anyway, yeah, I'm gonna be teaching this class. I'm gonna be teaching 2 classes. So I'm gonna have one on Friday and one on Saturday as well. So if you live around Vegas, yo, get a weekend pass, come to my class, or don't come to my class, just come to the expo and say hi to me. I just want to meet everybody. When I go to these sew expos, I just like to walk around and talk to everybody. I don't know, I'm just a social person. Bye. Now, I designed this bag to have minimal hardware. So all you're gonna need today is 2 D-rings, 2 1/2-inch D-rings, a number 5 zipper. If you have a label, go ahead and get that out. And then you can use a lock on the front of this bag. The pattern does have, but because it's for my daughter, again, instead of doing a turn lock, I'm gonna be doing a magnetic snap on the underside instead. And then I'm gonna put this little ribbon on top because I just think it's adorable. So it's going to be the same placement whether you do a label or a decorative piece or a lock. It's all the same placement. So I'll talk you through it when we get to that point. I've got a little piece of number 5 tape for my pocket on the inside. All right, let's see. Go ahead and mark the midpoint of all of your pieces. And let me explain this to you really quick. So the flaps, today I'm making the super mini, but every flap piece is made of 2 pieces, and it tells you that the little piece, that's what you use to cut your lining. So what you would do is, as soon as you cut all these pieces out, you take just this piece, which is flap A, and use it to cut out your lining. Then grab flap B piece, tape them together, and then you use this bigger piece to cut out your flap exterior that's going to be in your exterior fabric. Okay, so the little piece, that's what you use for your lining. Put it together, and that's what you use for your exterior. Okay. Now, normally I would do the outside of my bag with vinyl and the inside with waterproof canvas or something like that. I wanted to do this in a little bit different again because it's for my baby girl. So I wanted to use this really pretty canvas that I have. This is from Weft Warp, and it is just a canvas material, so it's, you know, a little on the thinner side. Because of that, I decided to use vinyl for my lining so that the bag will have some sort of structure. And I am not lining this because when I make bags for my daughter, I'm not too concerned with it having a full structure like I like for my bags. So this is just an option for you. This is what I'm doing today, but normally I would use vinyl on my exterior and I would interface that. I would highly recommend interfacing that with Sofuse Plus or Emilan's Heavy or Decaville Light, something of that nature. Interface all of your exterior pieces. And then for your lining, I would recommend using a waterproof canvas. If you have any questions at all about that, just shoot me a message down below or on my website and I can help you through that. I also will be using Pellon Peltex as my stabilizer. And note that the stabilizer for this bag goes in at the very end. We don't do anything with the stabilizer to the very last step of the bag when we put it together. So the construction is a little different, but just follow along with me and it's going to be okay, all right? So let's get started. Let's get all of this out of the way. The placement of the label depends on the size, so visit page 8 to get those measurements. The first thing I want to do is work on our straps. I've already drawn my line long way on the underside and placed double-sided tape. I'm going to go ahead and take my tape off. Once the tape is off, I'm just going to fold it into that middle line. Now I didn't interface these pieces because, again, for my daughter, she barely uses her bags. So I'm not too concerned about interfacing. But if you're making this bag for yourself or for another adult, then I do recommend that you interface this piece with a light interfacing. Something like SF101 probably would be the best. Okay. Once we've got that done, we're going to measure down 2 inches from the top and draw a line. We're going to place some more tape right down the center. And now let's grab a D-ring and put it on. Now we're going to fold both of our edges to meet up at that line. Right there. Okay. Now let's place a piece of double-sided tape on the longer piece. So that's going to be the piece at the top. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing to the other one. Okay, so let's grab our exterior panel really quick. You'll notice throughout the pattern, I give you 3 measurements, and that's because this pattern comes with a mini size, the compact, which is the medium, and the Vonni, which is the large. And you're gonna use whatever measurement that applies to what you're making. So today I'm making the mini, so I'm gonna use the measurement for the mini. All right, there we go. So this is my point that I need right now. So I'm gonna take this and remove the backing and place it right there. Okay. Now I'm going to lift this up. So we're just lifting it up off of the tape. And I'm going to draw a rectangle. It doesn't have to be perfect because this is not going to show, okay? Now I'm gonna head over to my machine and I'm gonna sew right on top of that rectangle. When you go to sew it, if your D-ring is in the way, just move it out of the way. It's fine. Again, you can just move it out of the way. All right. Okay, now we're going to just take this and fold it back to how it was before. We're taking that bottom edge, that exposed edge, and we're putting it back to meet the other exposed edge. Right there, perfect. Now, what you can do is open it up and snip the corners. And that's just going to help make sure that this lies really flat and you don't have anything sticking out on the next step. Just like that. All right, now let's fold it back. If it's fighting you and trying to give you trouble, guess what? Tape it up. I am all about tape these days. It just makes your life easier. I'll tape everything. You want to move on me? Let me get my tape. Okay, and now we're going to measure down for 2 holes. The first measurement is going to be 5/8 of an inch down. And we're measuring from the top of this material on our D-ring. So 5/8 of an inch. And centered. And then 1 1/8 of an inch and centered. I always place a piece of stabilizer behind my hardware, so I'm going to go ahead and get that underneath. You can use rivets on both of those holes, or if you like, if you have some kind of cute decorative rivet, you can absolutely get it put in right there. I might do a heart. That'd be cute, right? Yeah, that's cute. I think I'll do a heart. Okay, now let's repeat the same thing to the opposite side. Okay, now let's grab our pockets. two of them are the same size and one is a little bit longer. Right now we're dealing with the two that are the same size. Okay, let's get our zipper pulls put on. And most likely you want yours to be opening to the right and closing to the left. That's the way I'm going to be doing mine today. Let's go ahead and take our tape backing off. Just like that, I need a love like that. All right. So one of them is facing right side up. We're gonna grab our zipper, opening to the right, closing to the left, and we're gonna place it right side down. Now I like to just have my zipper tape be a little bit longer than necessary, and I put the extra on one side so that my zipper can hang out over there. You can center it if you like. It truly doesn't matter. Whatever makes you feel good. that's what I do when I sew. You know, whatever makes me feel good. Now I'm going to line up the top edge of the zipper tape with the top edge of that pocket. Okay, next we're going to grab our other zipper pocket and we're going to place it right side facing down, lining up our edges again. Okay, and now we're going to sew this at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, now we're going to just open that up, press our seams on both sides. And now we're going to add a top stitch right along the top of our pocket. Okay, now let's reach for our flap. There we go. And also our longer pocket piece. We can go ahead and take the backing off of both of these. All right. So our flap piece is right side facing up. We're going to take our zipper so that it's right side facing down, and we're going to place it right on top, lining up the sides. Now grab your longer pocket piece and place it right on top, lining up the top edges. And now we're going to sew this together at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, now we're gonna open this up, and all of our pocket pieces should be going up right now, and this flap piece is by itself coming towards you. I'm going to massage my seams, and now I'm gonna go and add a top stitch right along here, just like we did on the other side. Okay, so to clarify, for what we just did, our seam allowance was going up towards the flap. the seam allowance was going up or going towards the flat edge, okay? Okay, so for this next step, we're going to be using our exterior piece to trim this down. So I want you to line it up, and you may not have as much showing as I do right now because I've adjusted the pattern as I was making the video. So if you don't have this much at the bottom showing, don't worry about it. But whatever you have hanging on the bottom that is longer than your exterior flap, remember their exterior was when we placed A and B together, okay? If you have anything hanging past that, go ahead and trim it down right now. They need to be identical. Okay. And now what I want you to do, this is essentially the front of our pocket. It's part of our lining. These two pieces back here, they're making the inside of our pocket. Okay, does that make sense? So what I want to do is trim these two pieces down so that they aren't in our seam allowance later. I want you to take the front piece and just fold it up. If you need to pin it so that it stays out of the way, go ahead and do that. Now you've got these two pieces, and what I want you to do is trim this down by about 1/2 inch to get it out of the seam allowance. All right. Okay, now I'm going to just close this at the bottom. Quick little baste and 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, and now we have a cute pocket. See, it's not confusing when you think about it. Or it's not confusing if you don't think about it, just do it. All right, so we're gonna place our flap and our flap exterior right sides touching, making sure that our zipper is inside. All right, and now we're gonna sew this together at 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. And when you sew it together, you wanna sew it with the exterior side facing up. All right, let's get this trimmed down to about 1/8 of an inch. If you have pinking shears, you can go ahead and use that. I'm gonna go and add a second stitch right outside of the first one along the zipper, just for some extra reinforcement. I'm also going to burn the zipper. Let's turn it inside out. Okay, poke those corners out. I like to use my hammer to help flatten out my edges just a little bit. Don't go crazy. There we go. Okay, and now we're gonna add a top stitch, but we're not adding it around the entire flap. Okay, that's why I said wait. Because I know when I'm reading the pattern, sometimes I skip over, I don't read everything, and I'll just do something because it's what I usually do out of habit. I wanted to try to catch you, say, hey, wait, don't go and add the top stitch because we're not putting it over the whole thing. Okay, so right now we're going to top stitch from one side of the zipper, the top, and we're gonna start about a 1/2 inch up above the zipper tape, up, over, around, and we're gonna come back and stop at about a 1/2 inch up above the zipper tape on the other side. And we're doing this at 1/8 inch seam allowance. We're also going to be doing this with our flap facing up. Okay, now because of how big my decorative piece is, I couldn't add it before I top stitched because it was in the way. So now I'm going to reach in and get my decorative piece added. If you're getting a lock put in right here, you don't have to worry about that. We're gonna do that at the very end. If you're getting your label put in right here, you should have already put it on because your label should be able to fit, you know, for a top stitch. But this is just really oversized. So I'm gonna get it added right now. Too cute. Love it. Oh my gosh, how cute is that? Yeah, she's gonna love it. Okay. Now we are going to top stitch the bottom. Oh, why am I taking this off? All right, so the same way as before, we're gonna start at about 1/2 inch below the zipper, and we're gonna stitch down just the sides. We're not gonna close the bottom because we're gonna be adding stabilizer there at the very end, okay? So just these two sides. And this time we're top stitching at 1/4 inch seam allowance, not 1/8, okay? 1/4. Okay, now let's grab our lining. Okay, make sure that your midpoint is marked. We're gonna grab some double-sided tape and place it right above the zipper tape. And this is on the exterior side. We're placing it right above where the zipper tape is, along that edge. Repeat the same thing to the other side. Let's remove the tape. So our lining is right side facing up, and our flap is lining side facing up. Match up the midpoint of your flap with the midpoint of this panel along the bottom. All right, and press against it. Okay, press firmly against it to get it to adhere. And now we're gonna top stitch along these two sides from below the zipper down, and we're doing this at 1/8 inch seam allowance. All right, and now we have kind of like a little hidden pocket back there. See that? Pretty cool, right? Okay, now let's flip over our lining. And we're gonna make 2 marks. Now, this mark depends on the size that you're making. I'm making a mini. So I follow the instructions for the mark for the mini. And as soon as I find my ruler that I just had, I'll do the next step. I mean, what in the world could have happened to my ruler that quick? I'll just use this one. That's so weird. I literally just had that ruler. Okay, so once you make your mark at the bottom and the top, grab a ruler and draw a line. And now we are going to take our 2 short edges and place them together and clamp it. All right, let's get this sewn together, and we're gonna be sewing right on top of the line that we just drew. I'm gonna go ahead and trim my seam allowance down to about 1/4 inch. And I'm going to press those seams open. Now let's turn it right side out. And we're going to add a top stitch along the outside of the seam on both sides. Now it can feel a little weird while you're doing this, but it's possible. Just take your time. I'm going to rotate it around and get the other side added. Now it actually might be easier to just end it and start over again, to be honest. I have a cylinder arm, so I'm able to do this, but if you have a flat bed, you might want to just end it at the first stitch and then start over. All right. And we are done with our lining for now. You can go ahead and get your label added if you want to. I wait until the end just because when I'm adding my bottom, I just feel like the label's just kind of in the way. I don't know. But you can add it now if you would like. All right, friends, I just wanted to take a second to jump in here and say that not only do I do sewing tutorials. I also sell bag making supplies, usually what I'm using in my videos, not today. But yeah, I have hardware, I've got vinyl, I've got zippers. My hardware, I specialize in gold. So if you're a gold lover like me, you definitely need to come and check out Luv Lola supplies. Okay, so like I mentioned, this bag is for my daughter. So I'm kind of going crazy and blinging it out. Just excuse me, don't pay me any attention. All right, let's get our back pocket made. So our pocket exterior is right side facing up. We're gonna take our lining and place it so that they're right sides touching. And then we're going to get them clamped together. All right, and now we're gonna sew around the entire thing, but we're gonna leave a hole at the bottom for turning it. So about 2 inches should be good, because this is pretty tiny pocket. 2 to 3 inches, whatever you feel comfortable with along the bottom. All right, I'm gonna trim this down, especially around the corners. Okay, now let's get a top stitch added along the top of this pocket. Make sure you've got it pushed out all the way. Okay, so it's time to go ahead and get my pocket attached. I didn't interface this, which I should have, you know, normally, but like I said, it's for my daughter. I'm not gonna worry about it. So what I'm gonna do right now is, first I'm going to find where I should place this. Again, there's 3 different marks in the instructions depending on what size you're making. I'm doing the mini, so I'm gonna go down 1 inch. So I'm gonna go to the back and I'm gonna find 1 inch. And then I'm gonna grab my pocket and find the center. So I can see where, that way I can see where it's gonna be placed. So I know it's going to be right here. Okay, and even if you did interface your bag, but you feel like you don't feel comfortable not adding a rivet to this pocket, because I really would rather you not add a rivet, because it just takes away from the look of it. It's supposed to be really cute and delicate. You can always add a little bit of stabilizer behind that if that would make you feel more comfortable to not have to put a rivet. Okay. If your stabilizer is not a fusible kind, just use some kind of spray adhesive. It only needs to hold long enough for you to get it attached. So now I'm going to take the bottom and go ahead and get that tucked in so we can get ready to get this attached to our panel. I'm just going to fold it in and pull, and it's going to naturally want to tuck in. Now let's get that back on again. We said 1 inch down, right? 1 inch down and centered. I'm going to put some double-sided tape on the back. Along the sides. Just to help it stay in place. If you're making this for, you know, for a little girl, for your grandbaby or something like that. Honestly, you don't even need to put this back pocket. It's more of a decorative piece. The only reason I'm putting it today is because I'm making a video for it. But if I was making this for my daughter and not making this video, I would totally omit this back pocket, and I would also omit the pocket, the zipper pocket on the flap. And if you don't do those two things, you can make this bag in like an hour and a half. So it's a nice, fun project for kids and even for yourself. Like I don't carry a lot in my bags, so I could omit the zipper pocket as well on my bag because I'm gonna have a little wallet anyway. So definitely can modify this to make this be a super fast make. I should have put glue on those screws. Again, it's for my daughter. She doesn't get any special treatment. All right, and now we're gonna get this attached and we're going to be sewing. Perfect. We're gonna be sewing from one side to the other. Now what I'm going to do, because I do want to back stitch this, even if you decide to leave the thread long and pull it through to the back, I still want you to do at least a one back stitch. So I'm going to do 1, 2, and I'm going to go back 1, 2. But you can go back 1, and then I'm going to do a couple of more stitches, and I'm going to go back 1, couple of more, and go back 1. And that way you can feel a little bit more confident about not having a rivet. And without all of the thread bunching up in the very corner. You can do a couple of stitches in back, couple of stitches in back to get that reinforcement without the thread being just a little bit, you know, too chunky. All right, and now we're just gonna sew around the rest. Take your time. Okay, again, I'm going to back stitch once, 2 forward, back 1, 2 forward, back 1, 2 forward, and back. All right, and that way we can have some reinforcement leading up to the end without just going crazy. Okay, and that should be sturdy enough to feel comfortable with, to not have to add a rivet. Okay, now we're going to make some marks again. These marks are also different depending on the size that you're making. I'm doing the Vonni mini, so let's see. From my top corner, I am going to measure 3/4 of an inch, 1.9 centimeter. All right, and at the bottom, I'm going to measure 1/4 of an inch. Now I'm going to draw a line. All right, place my short edges together and clamp. And then we're going to sew right on top of that line. Just like before, we're going to trim this down to 1/4 of an inch, and then we're going to top stitch. All right, let's get our exterior bottom added. Now make sure you're adding your bottom on the bottom. Make sure you're not doing it up here, okay? It's going on the bottom. So we're gonna turn, and this is our exterior panel that we're working with right now. We're gonna turn it inside out. Okay, and after we made after we close this up, we need to find our new midpoint. So we're gonna grab that one we have in the very beginning and measure out. And we're gonna get that on the top and the bottom. Okay, now grab your bottom piece, and they're gonna be right sides touching, and make sure that you're using right now the long side. You're gonna match that long side up with one of your center points on your main exterior. And then match up your other midpoint. Once you've got that matched up, you can go and do your straight sides. I like to start with my long side first. I like to use my metal clips when I really don't want anything to shift because they're so powerful. They clamp it and it's not going anywhere. Now, for this bag, I highly recommend that you use a stapler, at least in the corners, because it can get a little tight, and the stapler just really does a good job of making sure that it doesn't move at all. So, especially on the mini, I highly recommend that you use a stapler. All right, and if you do use a staple, make sure that the part that curls under, that grabs under, is on this part of the bag. That way you won't catch your finger while you're sewing, because I've done that and it hurts. And I like to staple as close as I can to the end. That way I can just trim my, I can trim it off. It'll be in the seam allowance. I don't have to pull them out. So I get as close as a tip as I can possibly get. All right, now let's get this sewn on at 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. This is so easy to sew because of the material. It's amazing what a difference the material you use makes, right? Which is why I'm adding the stabilizer at the end, because when you add stabilizer at the beginning, it just makes it a little bit harder to sew because of the stiffness. So we can add it at the end and get the same structure without the, difficulty of sewing it. All right. I'm going to trim this down to about 1/8 of an inch. If you have any staplers that were a little bit too close to cut off, just use a thin nose plier or a needle nose plier, I forget what they're called, and it gets them out pretty easily. All right, so our exterior is right side facing out. I wonder if I should give my daughter some purse feet. I wasn't going to, but maybe I will. Okay, I decided to give my baby some purse feet. I just cut some Sophie's Plus for the bottom, and now I'm getting it fused on really quick. So this goes to show you, when you're making a bag, you can change your mind. It's never too late to make adjustments to what you're working with. I want to give her some purse feet, so I need to get a little bit of interfacing on this bottom. Feels good. So cute. She's gonna love it. Okay, so if you want to get a label installed, this is a good time to go ahead and do it. I've already marked my placement. I just need to cut it out. I love this little iron. It's so convenient. I got it from Amazon. It is in my Amazon storefront if you're looking for something like this. It's great for ironing out wrinkles at the end of your bag. At the end of making your bag, you know, after you turn it out, sometimes you get wrinkles. So I always reach in with that and get that taken care of really quick. All right, and as usual, I'm going to be adding a little bit of stabilizer back there. So our exterior is right side facing out. Our lining should be inside out. Okay, now make sure that your front is matching up with your front and your back is matching up with the back before you start. We're gonna stick our exterior right inside. Okay, and now you see the reason why we didn't add our lining yet is because it makes it a little bit easier for this part. Usually you have to squish it in there and fight with it, but by leaving your lining piece off at this point, the bottom, it makes everything a little bit easier. So let's tuck our flap in. Oops, I didn't mark my midpoints. If you didn't find a midpoint on your lining, go ahead and do that now, like me. Top and bottom. Let's try that again. Exterior goes inside. Tuck your flap between the lining and the exterior. And now match up your seam, that midpoint, that seam on the center. Match up the seam on the back. The seams on the side. And now we're going to clip around the entire thing. Okay, now we're going to mark on the front about 6 inches that we're going to leave open for turning the bag out. Okay, so I'm going to say from about here to about here. Okay, I'm leaving a nice amount of space because there's no point in struggling to turn this bag, okay? Let's keep it real simple. All right, and now we're gonna sew this at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. When you get to the back where the flap is, it's going to try to pull a little bit because of you've got a little bit more material going on. What you need to do is show it who's boss. That's why we left this bottom open. So whenever your exterior tries to pull towards the side, towards where you're stitching, just grab a hold of it with this hand and pull it back out, okay? So now what I want you to do is take your lining and just pull it straight up. Straight up. There we go. So this is what we have right now. Now what we're going to do is insert our stabilizer. Let's grab it. And when you insert it for your flap, you're inserting it between the exterior of the flap and the back of the pocket that we made, okay? That's where it's going. So I'm going to open that up and get this in. Make sure you push it in all the way to the bottom. Because the end of the stabilizer should not be in your seams. It should go past the point of where the seam allowance is, okay? Okay, once everything feels good, now you're going to reach in and place your bottom stabilizer in. Now you can simply just place your stabilizer in. It's gonna stay there, or if you would like, you can use some sort of adhesive to spray it first and get it on, or if you have fusible stabilizer, you can fuse it on. Any of those options work. Okay, grab your stabilizer and find your midpoint. And draw a line down the center. And your stabilizer should be long way going that way, side to side, and the shorter distance going up and down. The center seam on the front of your exterior. And what we want to do is basically we're going to be lining this up so the center of the stabilizer is on the center of the seam. So I'm just looking in, looking at that seam, and lining everything up. Again, you can spray some adhesive if you would like. You can fuse it on, whatever works for you. And make sure you've got that scooted all the way down. Is that a word, scooted? Make sure you have your stabilizer pushed as far down as you can get it into those seams, because we don't want it in the way when we close our bag, right? I hate how expensive this Peltex fusible is, but it does come in handy. I gotta give it to him. It's a good product. Again, you don't have to have fusible. You'll get the same results. This is actually the first time that I've fused this on. I usually just place it. So if you don't have fusible interfacing, it's fine. I promise. Okay, this next part is a little bit of measuring again. Depending on the size that you are using, depending on the size that you're making, you're going to measure down for either the male part of your turn lock, or today I'm using a magnetic snap, so I'm going to measure down for the bottom of my snap. All right. Now that we've got that installed, we're going to reach through this hole so we can get our bottom attached, our lining, okay? So we're reaching through this hole and grabbing the bottom of our lining. And then we are pulling it back through this hole. Okay. There we go. Now grab your lining bottom. All right. We're almost done. Let's get our lining attached. Right sides are touching. We're matching up the midpoint. Matching up the side midpoints. Okay, now let's just stuff that in to the bag. There we go. And reach in between that back pocket and push it down as hard as you can, or as far down as you can. I guess not as hard. I have heavy hands, so I do everything hard. Just push it down in there. Okay. And now we're going to close up this hole in the front. So we're just going to fold it in. And if you pull at the corners like that, it should, you know, start to turn in for you. I'm going to go ahead and clip around the whole thing to get it ready for our final top stitch. Now, if you really want your bag to be structured, I did this on one of mine and I loved it. The same size stabilizer that you cut and put in the front of your bag, you can do the same thing, and at the very end when you insert all of your stabilizers, cut the exact same size and stick it in the back, centered, and it just really gives it a really great structured feel. When dealing with a small bag, I love it to be super, super structured because there's not a lot of room in it, right? So you don't want it smushing in when you go to grab stuff. You want it to be, you know, pretty solid and hold its shape. So I love adding extra stabilizers to my little bags. But since this is for Lola, I'll let it ride. But normally I would stick a piece right there in the back. All right. Let's get our top stitch added. I know it looks weird, but I promise it's gonna make sense in a minute. Okay? I know it looks a little weird, but it's gonna make sense in a minute. All right. We're top stitching at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'm gonna be starting on one of the sides above my D-ring. Okay, so we're here. We've got this pocket back here. All right, let's tuck this down. Now what I want you to do is measure out, and this measurement is gonna depend on, guess what? The size of your bag. For this one, we're going to be measuring out 3 inches. Okay, so for the mini, we're going to be measuring out from the center seam 3 inches. All right, so we got one, 2, 3. All right, this is the center seam. This is 3 inches off in the center seam, so I'm going to fold it. Okay, and when I fold it, I'm just going to put a clamp right there, and then I'm going to measure out 3 inches the other way. Right there, okay. And I'm going to put a clamp. And when you do that, that mark should be right outside of your stabilizer. You should be able to feel that stabilizer right there when you make that bend. Now let's go to the back, and we're doing the same thing. Make sure everything is tucked in as tight as it can be in the corners. And then we're going to tuck the back. And when we tuck the back, we want to make sure that we're doing it evenly. So what I mean by that is this edge of the flap right here should be the same distance from the edge of this pocket, this side and this side. So if your flap happened to have shifted and it's kind of like this, where you see your flap is almost the same measurement from this pocket and this one's way over here, that means it's crooked and it's going to make your whole back crooked. Move it around and get it to where it is even from each side. And also another thing to do is to measure from the top of your flap to the top of this edge, and you need that to be the same distance on both sides. So that's how you can just do a couple of measurements to make sure that everything is even. Yep, looks good. All right, looks good. All right, now what you're going to do is just take your exterior material and wrap it around your flap. You don't want to wrap it so hard that it starts to buckle, but you do want to make sure that it's nice and tight. So I'm going to leave this one on while I take this one off and wrap it around. Okay. And repeat to the other side. All right. So this is where we're at. You can already see the shape starting to form. Now let's grab our hole puncher. I'm going to start with the front. And we're going to be punching just right in that corner. We're going to be underneath. We do want to be underneath our top stitching. We don't want to poke a hole in our top stitching, and we're going to be going in maybe about 1/4 of an inch. So right under the top stitch and in at about 1/4 of an inch. Same thing on the other side. Now the back. And we are going through all of these layers, okay? It's two of the exterior pieces. It's going to go through the exterior panel twice and through the flap once. Same thing, I don't want us ripping or going through any top stitching, so we're reaching just below that top stitch and in about 1/4 of an inch. Actually, we're going to be going in a little bit more than 1/4 of an inch because we want to get past the flap top stitch. So just slightly more than 1/4 of an inch, just as far as it needs. Go in as far as you need to go to not break the thread on your top stitching, and right underneath the top stitching on the main panel. You may need to flip it over and go through it again because there's so many layers, just to make sure that you got it all. Actually, just go ahead and separate it if you need to go through it, and do it one at a time, just to be safe. All right. Mine actually went through, so I'm good. Okay. Now the other side. All right, and the last step is to get your lock installed. It should be already marked on your flap, and we're done. Grab your chain and we are finished. All right, y'all, that's it. Thank you so much for joining me for this video today. You can find me on all of the social media platforms. Go ahead and add all of that stuff in my, I'll add a link to all of that stuff in the video description box as well. So thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you next time. Bye.